right, everyone, welcome to the BGE Cloud. It is Friday, and this is another episode of The Plus in Pageantry. Today, I have world-renowned father, photographer, pageant coach extraordinaire, Mr. Chris Montgomery, joining us today. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amber. What an introduction. I didn't know I was all that.
Well, I'm trying to get my host thing going, so
Right.
working on
Well
it.
done.
Thank you. Well, welcome to the show. So, the Plus in Pageantry, we basically, I started this as a kind of passion project to talk about my experience as not only a Black pageant contestant, but a plus-size pageant contestant, and just shared my experience about what I've done in pageantry and where it's taken me. And now I'm blessed with the opportunity to give my platform to more people to tell their story. So, how were you introduced to the pageant industry?
Well, it started like a lot of other people through National American Miss when you get that card in the mail, right? And asking my daughter whether she wanted to compete or not. And she didn't know. We didn't know anything about pageantry back in 2013. So, I asked her about it. I stuck it in a drawer, kind of asked her about it a couple weeks later, and she said, yeah, sure. So we went to a open call, and her life and my life has changed since then.
Beautiful. I started with the card in the mail too. I got the card from NAM and I wanted to compete, but I was still in high school when I got my first card. So at the end, I think it was my senior year. So I was cheerleading, student government, volleyball drill team, like all these things. And my mom was like, who's about to sit down for a pageant? So I started with the USA system under David Maureen, and it was my, like, as soon as I got out of high school, I was like, what will I be? Who will I be? And I was like, okay,
right.
Nobody I know is doing pageants. I guess I'll make that my wheelhouse. So that's so cool. So technically, ma'am, thank you, because I did get the card and I technically answered the call.
Right. And the rest is history, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So so NAM is where you got your start, but you aren't just a pageant parent. You've made a business from pageantry. So what kind of inspired you to start, and which one came first? Was it coaching that came first, or was it photography that came first?
It was coaching that came first. One of the things I noticed in our first year, not knowing pageantry, always being a coach for 20 years prior to that with my boys and with Shayla growing up, I'm very observant when I don't know something. And so when I was around the system and pageantry through that first year, I noticed one thing really stood out to me. And that was that I felt that the girls that I saw at the pageant and at some of the other smaller pageants that we went to, that the girls in our community were underrepresented, under cared for, and undertrained. And even though I was one of those parents that had an undertrained daughter, I noticed that there was a separation gap between especially minority children or children that parents didn't have very much money. I came from very, very humble beginnings, being the youngest of 5 boys and a single mother that raised 5 boys by herself the entire time. So you know how it is. If you're trying to eat dinner, you better eat fast because it'll be gone. And I'm one of them little puppies in the dish. I'm picking up the things that fall out the dish, So I understand what it's like not to have much. And on the flip side of that, I saw the privileged children, privileged parents, or hardworking parents that had the money. I saw them accomplishing a lot of better things, a lot of greater things through pageantry. And that really, really touched my heart, just as much as training my daughter to get her up to stuff, to be able to compete with those people who had it and had the proper training and had the money and had the dresses and this and that. It really touched my heart to be able to help the community as a whole and kind of even it out. So coaching was something that was very important to me. And as I got pretty good at it, where my daughter started winning all the locals and all the states, I think her first state pageant was with you on stage at IJM. That was her first state pageant, and that was her first state win. So realizing that hard work and that study that I did, just like I did in sports or anything like that, and applied it to my daughter, that I could help other people. And the next year I went, and after my daughter won NAM, IJM, then NAM Nationals, I realized I wanted to help. And the next year I coached for free, probably about 10 girls, local girls, and all of them won state titles that year, that following year.
That's really incredible, because I didn't realize how linear, parallel our stories were. Because even meeting you and Shayla at IJM, I just had assumed that y'all had been in it for a while. And I remember talking to you, because even though I probably had a pageant or two under my belt by the time I tried IJM, I hadn't seen a lot of fathers present. They were at the show, but you were involved. And that was such a standout moment for me. And I'm kind of one of those people, once I see something in the lobby or around that I notice, I have to introduce myself and just give you that recognition on the spot. Because I can be forgetful too, so I don't want to ever forget. So I
didn't have a choice, Amber. I really didn't have a choice. My wife is not very artistic, and she's not a coach. She has no coach's training, and so I didn't have a choice. It was she took her foot and pushed me on in there, and I kind of ran with it because my daughter wanted it. And a dad, when your daughter wants it, if there's anything you can do, you're going to do it. So if I was able to help with the finances, and I was able to help study the craft, and that's what we did. We just approached it as studying the craft. And the same thing I applied to photography. Is back then there weren't many photographers in the Pacific Northwest at all. I think there was one. And that was another thing. I felt that for being a photographer on the side for 20 years prior to that, I realized, I thought that headshots were way too expensive. I just thought there wasn't enough effort in it. I didn't feel I felt the quality could have been better after looking at nationally at what the headshots look like. And that's no knock on that photographer, but I felt that I could provide, with the proper training and studying, like coaching, that I could apply that same principle to my work in photography and kind of do the shots myself for my daughter. So that's what I did, once again, for my daughter. And I don't know how to half-ass anything, Amber.
Same boat.
And it caught on fire.
Boat. I don't understand, especially when you have the kind of mind that can, crack the pattern, crack the formula.
Right.
You can't just sit on it. You have to apply it. And then, when you're doing what you're called to do, people will recognize that and they'll want to be a part of it. And, and that's just key to how things grow, especially because we do have such a small pageant community in the Pacific Northwest. We are all rotating around in the same systems, and using the same recommendations for each other. So it's just kind of Shayla comes out with a great headshot. People are going to come up to Dad and go, where did she get that photo taken? And for you to be able to say, well, I took it. I mean,
right.
Magic.
Yeah. Yeah. So it wasn't a deliberate thing to make it a one-stop shop. It was just something that I saw that pageantry needed, that my daughter needed for pageantry. And so I absorbed it the best I can. Of course, helped save money here and there, and it was beneficial and successful. So I just kind of ran with it, and you're right. One of the things you said was a calling, right? And for me, I realized many years ago that my calling was to help people and to communicate with people, and everything I do now, God has poured that down, has rained it down on me in my personal job, in coaching, in photography. Everything I do professionally is with people, and none of it, even the job I have, none of it was intentional. None of it was something I decided as a career path. None of it was. So I've been very blessed to open my ear to His word and listen and apply.
And it's funny, like I have many a preacher in my family, so if I get to preaching, just let me go. Let me go.
I have to calm down myself.
So, I find it very interesting, the shift that happens in your life when you actually do respond, because sometimes that thing that God has for you, it's just kind of like, it's so big, it's so grand, and you stand up with your experience and you look at it, because you don't have God's eye, you don't have God's vision, but you look at it and you're like, I don't know, Lord. I don't know about that. And then you start walking in it and you just start to see like how it's all just kind of lined up for you. And it's similar for me doing anything social media based. I have a love-hate relationship with social media, but in
Me too.
interviewing people, but in interviewing people, I'm finding so much joy in sharing my platform and just letting people kind of share their story. And that's something I've always loved. I've always loved a good story. So I'm happy that this is where things are taking me, just as I'm getting ready to shift into my next dream. So I'm super excited, and I'm
super excited for you. I mean, ever since I saw you on stage the first time, before we personally met at IJM, my family fell in love with you. One of the things about you was we saw someone that was like our daughter, right? That she could look up to. And you have been that role model for years, not just for her, but I've seen it for so many other women and so many other young ladies of color that I applaud you. I can't say enough about you.
Thank you.
I thank you for that.
I love being a mentor, and it's funny because I'm an only child, right? And people are always kind of surprised by that because of like how much I love to share. Traditionally we don't share, but I love sharing my experience, and if I can guide, especially young girls of color, because representation in every realm is so very important, and we just really need, our young girls to see all that they can be, not just how they're portrayed in some forms of media, and not just what other groups tell them they can be. So as many of us young women of color who are out there just shattering those glass ceilings, it's possible. Like I always want to be contributing in that. And as you've been on this ride with me a bit, so I've tried to retire from pageantry and step back and everything, and something always pulls me back. Like I've done the big long Facebook post about my retirement and hanging up my sparkly shoes and all these different things. And it's just
not the retirement post.
There's been 2 or 3 of them to come out.
I don't know. When I see them retirement posts, I'm like, okay,
see you in 6
all right.
months.
Not just yours. I see them all the time. I'm like, okay, all right.
The retirement, and then on cue, 3 to 6 months later, surprise!
Surprise! I'm back.
It's like, is it a surprise? We knew you were coming back.
So true.
But that's awesome. One thing that I want to give you the opportunity to talk about is like what you do in your day job, like because you're so great at all things pageant, but sometimes when we're considering your time, we, myself included, as a client, like need to realize that you also have a day job. So what do you do outside of pageantry?
I do. I am not a brave soul. I know some people are really extremely brave, and they dive into entrepreneurship. I like that every other week check that
Amen.
comes in as long as I clock in. I've always thought of a starving artist as starving, and I like to eat.
Period.
So I can't quit the day job. But my day job is as I'm a union rep supervisor.
Oh,
So
cool.
one of the things I do in my job is tend to people through our union membership who are engineers. So engineers at medical facilities, burner facilities, county facilities throughout the southern Washington and all the state of Oregon. So I do quite a bit of traveling, not only overseeing the reps that are under me, but also tending to my membership via bargaining contracts, formulation meetings, tending to their disciplinary action meetings, and so on and so forth, grievances, all those things on a day-to-day basis. I communicate and work with people to help make their workplace a better place through HR and through management, and working together instead of butting heads with a union rep, which a lot of union reps do,
Yeah.
and managements do. But working together in order to make their place a happy work environment where they can get up in the morning and be proud that they're making a decent wage, a fair living wage, and being able to put some food on the table for their families and pay their bills and survive. So I love it. It was something that, as I said, I fell into. I organized a unit at a job I was at, and a rep called me into the office to come to the hall one day to just talk to me. And the next thing you know, they were offering me a job, and I was getting old, so I said, let me get out of this truck and try this out. And it's worked out. I've been there a decade, and I started from the bottom. I'm as high as I want to go. I'm actually higher than I wanted to go. Because I don't like to be a boss of anybody. I just like I'm one of those foot soldiers. I like to be a foot soldier, but my boss said, no, that's the only job I have for you now. Your other job is eliminated. So I said, okay, I'll take it.
Right, like since my old job doesn't exist anymore,
Right.
You guys were just gonna bully me into taking this promotion.
Right.
I've always had desire to be an entrepreneur,
Mm.
but the way that I like that direct deposit hitting every other week,
Right.
like
Right. It's something about it.
there's a comfort there, and I'm just kind of like, I'm pursuing a very big dream I've shared with you before. I'm working on opening a large size inclusive formal wear store
Right.
here in the Pacific Northwest, and
Mhm.
it's been such a battle, but I've learned so much, so it's been super exciting. But the way that I feel so comfortable in the space,
Mhm.
and that's a big part of it. Once you feel
Sure.
comfortable, it's time to add some coals to the
Do
fire,
something
whatever.
different. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, my day job, and I work in residential property management, and we have buildings all through the greater Seattle area, Hawaii,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
elsewhere. But I was comfortable as an assistant manager, just taking care of AP. I still got to
Right.
kiki haha with my residents and stuff, and then an opportunity came about for me to get promoted to be a manager, and I like a business manager, and I was like, okay, that's fine. And but I was at we had 3 communities, and there were 2 managers.
Mm.
So me and one of my best work friends, we worked at a different company together,
Uh-huh.
and we were managing these 3 buildings, and I was like, okay, like this works for me.
Right.
Then I was about to leave to go to USOA Nationals the first time, and
Uh-huh.
they were like, hey, we have an opportunity for you to go to a property solo manage, but it's a boutique building, so it'll be just you. And I was like,
Hmm.
just me? Like,
Just me.
I'm a social butterfly. Like, I need support.
Right.
And they were like, no, like, I think you can do it. And I was like, no, get somebody else to do it. And then I came back, and they were like, okay, so report to this property because that's where you're going to be. And I was like,
Wow.
okay.
Okay.
And it was like it was around Capitol Hill. It was just after Chop.
Mm.
And all that had cleared out, and I was
Wow.
like, I don't know
That's
if I'm like
amazing.
it. But I went in, I had a great time. I love that building. I love the owners.
Hmm.
I felt complete autonomy over how I wanted to run that building. So
Nice.
it wound up being a
That's
good
always
thing.
nice.
And then the same thing happened. They were like, "Hey, um, another building just came up. It's larger. You're familiar with the property. We want you to go there." And I was like, "No, I like it here. Like I just got to the point where I like it here." And they were like, "But it's a great opportunity." So I said no. And then like 6 months later, the
Wow.
same opportunity came back, and I was like, "All right, God, I hear you." So I answered the
Yep.
call,
Yep.
and that's where I am now. And it's great. Like I love getting paid every 2 weeks. I have a
Right.
team, that's like mostly dependable.
Right.
But like is as much as they can be, right. And then I'm able to do things like this outside of
Yeah.
work, where
That's
I'm
beautiful.
I'm able to build this platform. I'm able to ride my Peloton and
Yeah.
do get
Yeah. You
silly
be
stuff.
on that Peloton too. You be on that
Baby.
sweat dripping.
I go ham, and then I'm competitive. Like that's the thing. I don't think
Right.
people realize how competitive I really am because
Right.
there was a lady yesterday. Her name was, I don't remember her ride name, but I remember she was in her 40s, and
Uh-huh.
she kept trying to pass me. Baby girl, don't do that. Don't do
No,
that.
you're like you're in your 40s. I'm not letting that happen.
Don't do that. Don't do that one. Like, don't try to get your big one over me. No, ma'am. I gave her a high five. I cranked the resistance up by like 5 and was
As you
pushing
pass her
like,
by, I'd be like, bye,
"Bye."
high five.
I'd be like, that was cute. Like you tried it. But yeah, I get so scared though because I'm like, I need to calm down because if I get passed out on this bike, ain't nobody here.
Right. Right.
Or
Right.
Apollo,
Right.
and I leave the door open so he just comes in and he'll come to the front of the bike so that I see him pop in. Then he just goes. He's like, not this again. But yeah,
Uh,
I love sharing my rides because they are hard.
yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I've had this bike for 2 or 3 years now, and
Yeah.
the rides don't let up.
Yeah. That's why I don't own a Peloton.
You
No.
should do it. You should do it
No. 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 No.
because we can
No.
ride.
No.
We can arrange something. We can do
No.
like a big.
Look, Shayla and Sheila tell me to sit down somewhere. Okay. Because
But
I'm always doing, if I'm not on the computer fixing a photo or coaching with somebody or setting something up, I'm up moving around, reorganizing or working on a different photo style or something. I don't need a Peloton.
I'm
I
telling
just
you,
turned 56, and those people that are on Pelotons at 56, praise the Lord for you. Hallelujah.
there's a
Because,
man. He gets on. He's in his 60s,
yeah,
pushing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I'm, I'm,
56 is really young. Like you just get one and we can do a
I'm
Believe
so
Girls
proud of
walk.
him. I'm so proud of him and his hard work.
I
I'm
love
not
that for
doing that.
him.
Yes. I have back issues, knee issues. I have all kind of stuff. See, he probably worked at a desk all of his life
Oh,
and he
hell
never
yeah.
did any physical
Yeah.
sports or anything like that. See, I beat up my body till I was about 45.
Yeah.
So,
But I think
yeah.
he might be like a Navy man or something. I think he's like in the military or something.
Oh,
Because people can ride with hashtags. You know?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. That's
Yep.
it.
Yes. Yes.
Now, am I wrong? You were in the military, yes?
I was in the military. Yes. U.S. United States Army. Yeah.
Oh, in
I
the
was a
Army.
tanker.
Okay. Yeah, my
Yep. Yep.
grandpa was in
Saudi
the Army.
Arabia. Yeah, I was part of Desert Shield and at the beginning of Desert Storm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, as a
Well,
tanker.
thank you for your service.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
my grandpa was in the Army, and I have an aunt who was in the Army. I think she did 2 or 3 tours in Iraq
Hmm.
after 9/11, and then my boyfriend was in the Navy.
Right.
So as much as I was like, when I started dating again, I was like, I don't want no, I don't want no military personnel.
Yeah, military.
but
People.
like, but like, stone's throw, especially in Seattle, like
Right.
you're gonna hit somebody that is or was in the military.
Absolutely. 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 And it's funny how we're attracted to our polar opposites at time, right?
Mhm.
What we never thought we would want or marry or date, that's who we end up with, right?
Exactly.
You know, and because me and my wife, polar opposites. The only thing we love
Each
now,
other.
today, that we agree upon is going on vacation. But typically, she likes to go. I'm a homebody. I'm artistic. She's not. She's into reading. I'm not. Everything that I like, she doesn't like. She doesn't like.
Me and
So
Junior are similar. We're both homebodies, but it's like when I am out in the world, I enjoy it. Like I
right,
can turn it on. He's just kind of like counting down the hours to come back home. And then I when we started dating, I just decided I was going to just throw whatever poor unfortunate soul ended up with me. They were going to get thrown into the deep end of everything. So we started dating, and I think 2 months in, 2 or 3 months in, I had him sign on to do production with me for
right,
the for the pageants, Northwest
yeah,
pageants. And then on top of that, he brought up, and he keeps trying to act like he's not the one that pulled me out of retirement. He brought up, he was like, "Well, I never got to see you in a pageant." So
see,
I signed up for a pageant. So it was literally, I think we did Washington. No, we did Idaho, Oregon. I competed, and then we did Washington production. So he had 4 pageants within like our first year of being together under his
wow.
belt.
Did he
And
go to
then just
Arizona with you?
he was going to go. No, he didn't go to Arizona with me. He was going to go, but I think he had a work thing.
Oh,
But yeah, so it was hilarious. And now he loves David and Maureen. And if I do anything to upset him, he doesn't say he's going to tell my mom. He's like,
right.
I'm gonna call Maureen. And
I'm gonna call Maureen.
I'm like, what? How could you do this to me?
I think I'd rather have Maureen know about it than your mom anyway. I mean,
Yeah,
she's a sweetheart. Love her to death. But you know how moms are,
yeah.
right? So, and
But he
Maureen,
calls
she's
her.
just sweet as pie.
If we're on the phone and we're fussing about something, he will call my mom on three-way.
Oh,
And now I
that's the type of man you need.
right? Because
Yeah.
yeah, like I feel this is so special. Like this whole experience has been so special. Like I mean, I'm very excited to see what happens next for us. But like I've never dated anybody who had that kind of relationship with my mom or with pageantry.
Mm,
Like
very good.
before him,
Hmm.
the last guy that I dated seriously, he would just be like, "It's too much money. Why are you doing that? You know, you
Mm,
never met him,
right,
right?
right. No, I never met him. That's why.
Right."
That's why.
See? So yeah, so it's very nice to be with somebody who's so supportive, so understanding and patient. So
Yeah, yeah.
very
Pageantry,
important.
pageantry is expensive. You know, I tell my new clients not to reiterate that to my veteran clients. Pageantry is expensive. I have 4 tubs right now that I was working on this morning. They are 3 foot by 1.5 foot. Those big blue Tupperware tubs, about another 1.5 feet deep. I have 4 of them that are being picked up this morning for a pageant closet. Full of one of them is full of Shayla's shoes from preteen, junior teen, some teen stuff, and the rest of them and all the rest are casual wear outfits, dresses, appearance outfits, all kind of. And I've got a Sherry Hill gown that she wore to IJM at Nationals, that green one she wore. I
Oh,
still have it.
beautiful,
Oh
beautiful.
yeah, it's going. I have tons of stuff that people are picking up today. And just before I spoke to you, I spoke to the lady that I was giving it to, and I said, you know, I hate to see all this money go bye, but we've held on to it for so long. And you know what? Each penny and each dime that we spent on it served its purpose,
Yeah.
and it helped build the woman that Shayla is today. And therefore, it's all worth it. I can give it away because it was worth it. It was so worth it. She wouldn't be the girl she is today if it wasn't for pageantry, and that I am 100% confident of.
I get the same way with my clothes. I feel so guilty about spending so much money on clothes.
Right.
So So I donate.
I don't have a choice.
Well, yeah, your dad.
Daddy. Okay,
Like,
here's my card.
right, like your dad.
Yeah.
But like, I I do a closet clean out probably like every 3 months, and then I will donate my clothes. So whether they're going to like youth gospel mission, or and then
Right.
sometimes I feel bad. I'm like, I don't know if church folks are going to want some of
What about
this,
this? Yeah.
you know, like I'm like, or just I just donate it, and
Right.
it makes me feel good, especially being a plus size person in this industry, because
Right.
I know how hard it is to find an inexpensive gown that
Right.
will fit my body type.
Mhm.
And I think when I'm talking to women who are interested into coming into pageantry, I try to tell them, I'm like, you know, it doesn't get any cheaper the longer that you're in pageantry. It's one of those
Right.
things that
No.
it's going to either is more likely going to get more expensive the more that you excel, and
Absolutely.
you know you start to find yourself in these bigger, larger, grander
System.
pageant systems. So
Yeah.
it's definitely an investment, and if you're going to invest the kind of money that I know I've invested, then it's
Right.
important that you do everything at its best. So do get the coach, do
Right.
you know, but do your research on the coach, you know,
Right.
because yeah, just do your
Everybody,
research.
because everybody ain't for everybody,
And that's that.
right? Everybody's not for everybody. You know,
Well,
I think,
go ahead.
you know, I got, you know, that's funny because I remember it probably happens to everybody, right? When they become a coach, right? When that year after Shayla was winning big and everything, and I became a coach, everybody's like, oh, so you're a coach now, right? And I think everybody goes through that when they begin coaching, right? Oh, so you're a coach now, and that's a sarcastic remark, right? It's not anything positive. It's not like, oh, great, wow, I'm so glad that you're coaching. This, you can help so many people. It's like, oh, you're a coach now, and for me, anything negative has always been fuel to what I've always done. And I think Shayla is the same way. I've always told people throughout her pageant career, if you don't want her to do that great, leave her alone. Because if you pick on her, or you point at her, or you point at me, or you do this or that, it's just gonna make us work harder, right? It's just gonna make us work harder. So I think that it's important that when you love something and you want to do something, that you own it and you put your all into it, no matter what, right? And no matter what people say, no matter what people do, it's important for you to own it. And that's one of the things I try to explain to my clients is, look, yes, you're paying me for your service and I appreciate it, but I want to work with somebody who wants to work hard and who wants to accomplish their goal. And I don't like to use the word win. I do not like that word, right? I don't like to use the word win, because in pageantry, you're subjecting yourself to a subjective result, and therefore you need to accept the subjective outcome, right? And I don't believe a girl wins a pageant. I believe she's chosen to be a title holder to represent a system, right? Because if you look at it from a subjective standpoint, that's how it is, right? Of course, you have to do some work to be selected, right? But at the same time, you have to do your best and you have to try hard, no matter. And one of the things you said is it costs more money. And I tell people all the time, when you win, it costs you more money. Oh no, this isn't it. This isn't it, right? It costs more money. And when you excel and you want to do more, and as you excel, you do bigger systems, you have to continue to step your game up, right? Because they see you coming.
They see you coming, and it's just like, I work really hard not to, you know, some girls get so caught up in who's going to be there, like who am I competing against, and it's just kind of like, for me, when I'm getting irrelevant. The second they start, like, I will pay attention when my announcement comes up, like, share, all that, and then after that, I honestly, I came up in an interesting point in pageantry Like my first couple pageants with Miss Washington USA, they took our phones, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, they took our phones, and we really had to be present and interact with each other that weekend.
Wow.
And
I love that.
I love that so much, but I think that so many contestants get caught up, you know, looking up each other and everything,
Right.
you know.
What
And
is that?
I don't see the point in it. I
Mhm.
want to really, you know, enjoy this experience with you. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
And I'm not trying to act funny or anything, but it's just kind of like, I don't want to get a perception of you before I meet you. I want to
Right.
meet you and authentically want to know things about you, but I don't want to get there and you know my birthday and my favorite hobbies and everything like
Right.
that before.
Right. And
before
why are you giving your energy to someone else when you need to be focusing on yourself, self improvement? That's what it's about,
It's like
right?
you should have done all the work by the time you get to the big show to where you can go in and be pleasant and interacting.
Right.
It's just like right before the competition, I am not opposed to taking a moment, stepping back, and just, you know, getting in the zone. I'm not saying don't do
Right.
that, but so many
Right.
girls, they're on the phones with their coaches, their moms, their whoever the whole time.
Right.
And it's just,
Mm-mm.
it's so
Mm-mm.
absurd
No.
to me. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
we're here, we're experiencing this together. So let's
Right.
be
One of the
together.
things I tell my clients not to do, you know, unless it's an emergency or something like that, don't call me when you're at the pageant, right? If you need something or if you're having anxiety or something like that, call me. I can give you a pep talk. We can pray, whatever. But you're right. Once you hit that check-in at the airport,
Yep.
there's no reason why. If there's a reason why you're contacting me, then I haven't done my job or we haven't worked long enough together, right?
Because it's like, if you hear somebody else's answer, or I say this in every single episode, at the pageant is not the time to change anything.
Nothing.
Like,
Nothing. Right. Don't change it. Yes. Well, and tell me why is that?
It's because you have already rehearsed, your body knows what it's going to do on stage, you know how you speak, you know your cadence, but because the woman in front of you said, I'm Shelly Shell,
And as your next Miss blah blah blah, I think I'll do that.
I think I'll do that. And then you go up, you deliver your speech, and then in that moment where you think you want to put it in, now you're that meme. Well, and what happens next?
Yeah, now you're stuck.
Now you're stuck.
Looking like a boo-boo.
Stick to what you rehearsed. It's not,
right.
And then poses, same thing.
Same thing.
You're watching each other during rehearsal, and yes, maybe you know how she rolls her shoulders, or maybe she does pull up and eat
a little tweak, little tweak.
It is. But like, baby girl, changing the whole routine because you saw somebody else do it.
Right.
It's like you're wearing a trumpet style dress. That girl has flowing capes and everything.
Right.
So
what are you gonna throw with your pantsuit?
It blows my mind, and it happens every system, every year.
Oh, it does.
And I'm just like, don't do that, don't do that. Or people will ask backstage, they'll be like, Amber, how does this look? Is that what you rehearsed? That's what you'll get from me every single time. Is that what you rehearsed? Well, you know, I just thought that, you know,
no, it's not time to coach you while you're at the pageant, right? And if for my followers on Instagram or anything else that follows me on my stories, I tell people all the time, you don't need a coach if you follow my stories, because I'll tell you straight out what not to do. I'll tell you, I'll critique. I never point to a specific individual ever, because I wouldn't want to insult anybody. But I tell people what not to do. I tell them early on in January, be consistent, get a coach, be consistent, get a coach, work hard, do this, do that, don't do this. And every year, Amber, I am not lying to you, this time of year in the middle of July, when it's at the height of pageant season, you know, people book with me for the first time.
I believe it.
For the first time. They got a pageant in a week, 2 weeks. Can I get a session with you? Yeah, but I don't know how I can help you, boo-boo.
I'm always shocked because it's not always like new girls to the industry.
No, it's not. It's the ones that are veterans that love to do it because they think they don't need it,
Right,
right? They think they don't need it.
right.
And then they show up and they don't place as high as they wanted to because they just packed their bag and had a session or two the week before the pageant.
Yeah.
Or they've already looked up the competition on Instagram. Oh, I can beat her. I beat her before. Oh, blah, 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 blah. That you don't know how hard that girl is working.
Yeah.
You don't know how. I mean, and I have trained girls that were nobodies that beat somebody's quite often. So all that trying to think that you can live on last year's reputation, last year's skills, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
And what they forget is, a lot of veterans, myself included, because I had to, do some self work because most of my pageant career, I had never had a coach.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I was flying by off of personality alone.
Right.
and,
Well,
and,
and you got a lot,
and
right?
that,
You
and that
have
worked.
stage presence. You're
But
born with it.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I was. No, but uh, so I decided when I decided to go back to USOA that I was going to work with a coach.
Hmm.
Like I consulted on a couple speeches before. Don't get me
Sure.
wrong, but like
Sure.
working regularly with a coach was something
Regular.
I had never done.
Right.
So I did that, and I saw just those nuggets where I won't say like wrong, but where I was falling a little short. And
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
just gave me that much more appreciation for coaches because
Right.
before I was like, maybe you need it, maybe you don't. But then I was thinking about my experience, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's just kind of
Right.
like I can't say that my career probably wouldn't have been that much more elevated had I
Different.
not gotten a coach sooner.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
so so yeah, so
Sure.
I am, somebody who did the same thing. I was like, well, I've done the system before, and
Right. It
maybe
helps.
I'll do fine, but
Yeah.
it definitely
It,
helps
it helps, but
to
it's expensive, and I understand that, right? That's one of the reasons why I became a coach was because it was so expensive. For 2 years, Amber, I didn't charge at all, nothing. And one of the reasons why I started charging was only because my family was complaining that I was spending so much time with these girls and not spending time with them. So to to help that along, I said, okay, I'll start charging a little bit. I think my first fee was $20 for an hour for 50 minutes. No, it was a whole hour.
wow.
And yeah, $20, and I was more booked than I wanted to be. I'm sure I was working all the time, but it's expensive. But for those girls, even the most experienced girls start every other week, 3 months ahead of a pageant or some get the juices flowing, do something. But
Yeah.
for those girls who are young and haven't worked or haven't been very accomplished or haven't made top 15 or top 10 or something like that. There's a reason why, right? Parents will put 5,000, I've seen it, 5,000, $8,000 into a gown. They have the bombest outfits,
Mhm.
but they have no training whatsoever, right?
And you can
And
tell.
and you can tell, right? As long as you look good and you got the best hair and makeup artists and this and that, blah blah blah, and you go out there and they just fall flat. And so I always tell people, be balanced in your pageant finances, right? I'm not trying to take all your money. I don't need the money, and I don't mean that as a negative thing. I don't need their money. I don't do it for the money. If it was just about money, I would quit my job and just do this. I could probably make just as much, right? But it's not about the money. It's about helping someone progress. And I don't feel like I'm helping someone truly in a 125-minute session a
Right.
week before they go to the pageant. It more hurts my heart that I know that they may not be able to accomplish their goals in such a short amount of help that I can provide them. And yeah, it hurts.
Well, I mean, a part of what you do is, you want to build a rapport with your client, right?
Right.
there is no one brushstroke that will work for every girl that
No.
comes, across
Right.
the stage.
Right.
So you
Right.
need time to get to know that
Yeah,
person.
to get to know who they are, what their quirks are, how can I
Right.
tweak this, and how can I motivate them this way? And you can't do that meeting them for 25 minutes and seeing their face on Instagram, or them saying, "Oh, I know you, I know your daughter," blah blah blah. I can't help. There's not enough time to do
Yeah.
that. You know.
Yeah. I've been in the
Yeah.
same boat. People, because of my congeniality titles, parents
Mhm.
have come up to me and been like, "Can you coach my girl to win congeniality?" And
Right.
I have very
Wow,
lovingly had to say,
that's tough.
like, I'm like, "Baby, I love everybody the exact same way. I can't teach that."
I can't teach you.
Like, I,
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 I wish if you could, I wish you would tell me how to teach people to do
right?
that, because I think it's something you're born with. It's through your life. It's through your story. It's how you communicate with people. It's how you react to people in any given situation. Congeniality isn't something that can be taught.
Yeah,
It's
I was like,
it's a gift.
I lived this. So it's just kind of like, if
Right.
you encounter me pageant weekend and you encounter me out in the world, like, you're going to get the same
Same person.
experience.
Right.
So while I'm sure your child is sweet as pie, I don't know
Right.
how to coach them into being a Miss Congeniality.
Right.
But do read my book when it comes out. No, I'm joking.
Remember.
do read my book, A Congenial Heart by Amber Bruce. Thank you.
Right. Right. Do you, and I know this is your interview, you're supposed to be interviewing me, but I have a question for you. Have you ran in, and I'm sure you have, so I'm kind of setting you up with this question. Have you ran into people who weren't fans of you, and how you, as a Black female, as a Black strong Miss Congeniality female, have you run into people who didn't really care for you through the pageant community?
I'm going to
We
say,
can tell by a look.
yeah, so
They don't have to say nothing.
No one has ever outright said that they didn't like
Right.
me, because I do have such a team, like such a big circle of love around
Right.
the pageant community. So no one has ever outright, it's never gotten back to me.
They don't dare.
Right. Like, so, and I'm not saying that to be cocky at all, but it's never gotten back to me that somebody has been like, Amber, I don't know about that one.
Right.
But I did have a girl shade me once at a national pageant. And it's funny because we were all on stage and I was doing my thing, so sometimes, like, I love rehearsal because that's, one of the times
right, you're having fun, right?
And yeah, so I'll take over if you let me.
Right.
Choreographer,
I'm running
with all the respect in my heart. If you let me, I'll take the whole thing over.
Yes.
So
get out the way.
We're in rehearsal and I'm just going through and I'm making sure that I've introduced myself to everybody, because that's something that I like to do. Just kind of make sure, I've touched everybody's hand, we've all had a moment. And she goes, I was like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then she asked me how old I was, which I was kind of taken aback by. And I was like, oh, I'm 20, whatever at the time. And she was like, oh, I thought you were much older. And I had a friend that was there. So I looked at her and then she just shook her head. She said, and I said,
be like, girl, she don't know. She don't know.
I was like, okay. And then I walked away, and then literally the choreographer was like, Amber, can you show us how to, Amber, can you? And I was like, I guess. But yeah, so like, that's the only kind of salty encounter that I've had.
Right.
But like, other than that, it's been all love in my face.
Yeah. It's we live in the Pacific Northwest. We know that throughout our nation, we're going through a lot of struggles right now, right? And not just right now. We've struggled
historically
for many a decades, right? It just gets hot, it gets cold, it gets hot, but it's still there, right? Yeah. It's still there. and I'm not talking about us as just African Americans. I'm talking as minorities, as Caucasians. We all have our struggles economically, socially, all those different things. So we all should be able to feel the temperature in the room or in a social environment, social media, or whatever it may be. And I always tell people, and I tell my wife this because she's 0 to 100, where I'm like, they didn't mean to, they didn't mean to, they didn't mean to. Nah, they didn't mean to. Okay, wait a minute, right? Because I'm a Leo, I have this long rope. But I've learned as a business agent, especially through my job and through life stories, that it's how we react to people in our settings, and that's part of congeniality, right? It's how we react to people and their internal issues, whether it involves us or a subject or a particular topic or issue. It's how we react to people. I've always been in the mindset of educate and listen and understand their view, so I can help educate them if I'm educated enough to explain it, to help them, right? And some people don't want the help and won't accept the help, right? But at the same time, I think that how we react in our pageant community and us as parents, how we react and the things we do on Facebook and the things we say to people and all those different things that are nasty, that are rude, and talking about somebody's child and talking about, all those different things are detrimental to us as showing love for each other, and the jealousy and envy. And I think that in our pageant community, how we react to things needs to be taken a step back before we respond to things. And that's one of the reasons why I'd never be a director. I have someone just recently asked me to direct again. And I've probably been asked to direct almost not every system, but about 4 major systems. And I'm not interested in directing at all.
Well, I mean, I didn't even want to step into the choreography space.
Right? I wouldn't mind helping a pageant or being working like you work at Pacific Northwest, Pageant Northwest. But I'm not going to be that person that's going to take all them complaints the day after the pageant. I'm not doing that.
Well, see, so I mean, I feel safe working with Maureen and David because that's where I started my pageant career. Yeah. And when you talk about something that's reacting to what's happening around you, anytime that there was a kerfuffle or anything like that, even if it was backstage, what have you, I've always been that person that I'm going to do everything in my power to de-escalate the situation.
Right.
So I've been around for a while, so I've been on stage with girls who don't exactly have the best of reputation, right?
Sure.
Oh,
sure.
You're clear of that one, she's this, she's that. And I have to develop my own feelings and opinions. So I'm not going to be over here shaking in the corner with everybody else.
Right.
I'm going to go forward and just be like, I'm Amber, it's nice to meet you. What do you need right now? Because it seems like there's something missing. There's a miscommunication. What is it that you need? How can we support
How can I help you?
Right. Mm-hmm. And that was me as a contestant, and that's me as a choreographer.
Right.
It's kind of like we live in this world where just all these storylines are just pushed day in and day out, and it's just kind of, we don't have compassion when we're sharing space with each other. These situations, they're just going to continue to bubble over.
Right.
Like I said, I walk in love every single day, and that's what surrounds me. So when I'm reacting to something, it's going to be in love every single time. I was cyberbullied for associating with a pageant.
Yeah.
Twice.
Wow. Wow.
And, every time I tried to have that conversation with the person, I would just, I'm opening my heart to you. I'm trying to figure you out. And, but one thing I won't do, because you're Leo, I'm a Libra. Okay, like the scales, like I try to keep them balanced, but you know, you keep playing and it's gonna tip
You
a
keep
little
trying to
bit.
one up
Like
me.
you can play if you want to. So like, you know, so
Yeah.
you try to get funny, I'm gonna get hilarious. Like,
Right.
right, every single time.
Right.
So it's just kind of like I do not want to be fighting on the internet in the comments, going back and
Mm-mm.
forth. I want to have a
Mm-mm.
conversation. You know, you're trying to
Right.
explain to me what your mission is, but you can't do that and belittle me at the same time.
Right. No, exactly. It's funny. It's funny. I was wearing this shirt last weekend at the Miss Oregon pageant, and it said half hood, half holy, and it's one of my, well, half hood, half holy. It means pray with me, but don't play with me,
Right.
right? And one of the people out there took a picture of me, and she said, "I love that shirt," and it really is. It's a good example of who I am, right? I'm very loving. I'm very caring. But I also grew up in a setting where I had to watch my back, and so I know how to react in a negative way if I have to, but I'm also mature enough to react in a positive way in order to try to soothe the conversation. If there is no end result and I've tried with you, then I know how to distance myself,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
but as a Christian, I am always open to forgiveness. Always. No matter what you've done to me, no matter what you've said to me, no matter how you've treated someone, for say in my family or my friend, my arms are always open wide. Always. My
Yeah.
door is never ever closed. And I just experienced that blessing of listening to him and keeping that door open just recently, and 10 years of that kind of stuff going on, and it was very humbling and very embracing to have that open dialogue and apology, so to speak, and just it was nothing but hugs and tears.
Oh,
That's all it was,
that's
you know. And we need more of that. We need more, instead of the standoffishness. And we need more of a conversation, because if I find out somebody has a problem with me, more than likely I'm going to reach out to them and say, hey, let's have coffee or let's talk, right? But I find that people in general that want conflict will not talk to you,
Yeah.
right?
No, they'll talk to everyone around you,
but they will not resolve it with you,
no.
right?
And
Because somebody might see that the problem has been sort of resolved, and maybe something might come out that they may have said is probably not true, right?
Well, and that's another thing, you know, in this industry, you know, there's a lot that happens behind the scenes in the shadows, you know,
Yeah,
before you ever even touch a stage. So in a lot of
right.
settings, you know, there are decisions that have already been made about who you are before you've even introduced yourself to
Yeah,
anyone.
yeah,
And I have always just really, really tried to go above and beyond to make sure that people see my heart, you know, when I
yes,
enter a room, because I
yes,
this
yes,
resting, this
yes.
resting isn't always friendly. Okay. And I understand that. Okay. I recognize that. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, I know that resting, it may not be
Yeah,
I
no,
may
no,
not be
yeah,
very approachable.
no, the
But
resting, yeah, you have. That's why we as a people, we're natural smilers.
yeah.
We love to smile, and I tell a lot of my clients that I say, I hear your response. It sounds great, but I see nothing here. And
Yeah,
and if
that's
you have
face to
no,
face.
and if they can't read your personality, then what you said is meaningless. You're a mannequin,
Mm.
right? You're a mannequin, and that's one of the things that it's so funny that your resting face would be that way. But I could see it. I've had those expressions from you, and I'm
Yeah.
like, she ain't
Like,
somebody to be
yeah.
messed with.
Or and I have to give a disclaimer at the pageants, like when I'm doing choreography, I'm like, okay, y'all, when my face drops, I'm just trying to see the show in my head. Okay.
Yeah,
Like don't take it personally. I'm not mad, I'm upset. If I give you a short answer, again, I'm trying to literally run the show. I am not mad at
Right,
that. I don't have anything
right,
against you. I don't wish you any harm. But,
right.
if I do have an issue with you or surrounding you, baby girl, you
Yeah,
will know it. You will know it. You will know it because I'm not a beat around the bush kind of gal. Like,
yeah,
love first. Love always
right.
first. But like I said, we I'm a work in
Yeah.
progress. You know.
One of the things for me is I didn't realize the pushback I would get as a black male helping my daughter coaching in the pageant community, a straight black male
I was
at
gonna
that,
say, I was
right?
gonna say because you probably would get a lot more passes.
Oh, I
You
would, I would, I would. And if I wasn't that, then I wasn't this. If I wasn't that, then I was this. I get a lot more passes. Absolutely, right?
know,
But like I said, everybody isn't for everybody,
right.
and I don't. And some of my very dearest friends aren't straight in the pageant community. Some of my people that support me and look out for me aren't straight or are black. I met another straight black coach,
Pageant.
pageant
Oh,
coach. I
nice.
did. I was like, I think he was like, so we're gonna do a live. We're gonna do a live here pretty soon. But yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. But for a male to be a coach and help his daughter, as you said, is difficult. Is different, not difficult, different. And for me to be a straight black male as a coach in the pageant community, it's different too. So those are things that I've had to, I guess, accept.
Just like
That,
you have to be prepared for, right? Like kind of like the side eye
but
or
I wasn't prepared. I had no idea I was supposed to be this or I was supposed to be that.
yeah.
Right?
Well,
There's black people in the pageant community. There's been for years, Vanessa Williams and so on. Right?
like
So why is it a surprise?
something that I've always been curious about from your perspective is like um what it's like having a biracial daughter in these spaces,
Mm,
and being the parent that's mostly present, like because like in short, me and my mom don't have the same last name, but like I have her face. But we don't have the same last name. But I remember instances in school where like she would want to just come pick me up, and because
mm.
our last names were different, occasionally she would
They
see.
wouldn't let her.
Right. They would just kind
Mhm.
of put her through the ringer. But I
Right.
always wondered, if you're a biracial parent and you're particularly the darker of the spectrum, like
Uh-huh.
how is that like interacting with your child, doing something as simple as wanting to pick them up from school or from a pageant or,
Yeah.
kind
It,
of
it
working
was
through
it
those
was
spaces.
it was it was much more difficult when she was younger. Um, I think it was primarily because of number one, because of where we lived,
Mm,
right? We lived in a primarily Caucasian neighborhood, maybe 95% Caucasian neighborhood, where she went to elementary school, where she went to preschool, where she went to middle school. Um, was It was those particular areas when I walk in and they say, "Who? You're Shayla's dad." Well, for Shayla, she could pass for anything.
right.
Cuban, Puerto Rican, Hispanic. She could pass for Caucasian. She could pass for all kind of different things. People look at Shayla and be like, "What?
Yeah.
What?
She's
What?"
racially ambiguous.
Right, right. Well, what is she? So when I show up, they like, "Oh, she's black," right? But for Shayla, that was a struggle growing up, right? Wanting to straighten her hair, wanting to be like her friends, this and that. She wasn't good. She wasn't ever going to be good enough. So she had to learn to be confident within herself and not worry about looking and talking and acting like everyone else because we're all raised different as well, especially being in a biracial relationship, a marriage and household, totally different upbringings on both sides. Me and my wife, um, but it's I love it. I hate to say it, Amber, but I love a challenge.
That's good.
I don't like it when I go into an elevator and someone clutches their purse, but I love it when I'm able to say, I hope you have a wonderful day, right? I want them, I would rather for them to feel self-guilt because they judged me and learn from that, right? Matter of fact, I had it happen to me last weekend and I was a sponsor. Somebody
Wow.
grabbed their purse right in front of me. I was like, oh, like, and I was like, okay, but you know what? But I don't think they realized they didn't know who I was,
Yeah. It's
right?
it's beautiful, and I like kind of like, again, those moments where you're diffusing, right?
Hmm.
So I love that. I have a picture of me from with our court when I went to IJM. I have a
Sure.
picture of us on my desk, right? So people come in, you know, usually into a leasing office. We see a lot of people on the worst days of their life. They just found out they lost
Yeah.
their job or a spouse, or so we have a lot to deal with. But
Yeah.
also, anything that breaks is our problem, right? And our fault,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I get people bursting into my office, and I usually have two diffusers. I have that picture on my desk, and I have my dog
Oh.
sometimes, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So if Apollo is there, they're like, "Oh, you have a dog? Okay, well, I just wanted to make you aware of," as opposed to the energy they gave when they came. Where's the manager? I want to speak to the manager now.
Right.
So there's
Right.
that. And if Apollo isn't there, the picture on my desk, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, is this you? You're
Right.
Miss Washington?" And they don't catch the tone that they're giving. You're Miss
Right.
Washington, like that uncertainty, you know. And so, as a Black contestant and a plus size contestant, because we are starting to see more Black women take on these beautiful roles with these large titles, right?
Yes.
So, not enough. We still need more people
Yep.
in the
Not
world.
enough.
We
Not
still
enough.
need more representation.
Yes.
But seeing somebody who has a fuller body frame, they're like, pageant girls are skinny.
You don't look like a pageant girl. Okay, tell me what a pageant girl's supposed to look like then,
Yeah, like let's
right?
talk about it. And then we end up going into a whole conversation about their insecurities. Oh,
Right.
growing up, my mom always said that my legs were too long or my nose was
Right.
too wide or whatever the case may
Right.
be. And then I'm
Right.
going like, I'm like, have you spent time with yourself just to figure out what you think about those features
Right.
that your mom picked on? And
Right.
I say it in my pageant interview all the time because I do have a platform that's built around self-love and acceptance.
Uh-huh.
And they're
Uh-huh.
like, well, what's something that you suggest women do to get comfortable with their bodies? And I'm like, you need time naked in front of a mirror where
Right.
you are just taking it all in. Because if you can't accept what you see, you can't expect for anybody
Yes.
else to,
Right.
and just like people with negative self-speak. So that picture on my desk diffuses all that hostility and anger, and
Yeah.
then we end up talking about them, and then we eventually get to the root to what the real issue
Now we
is,
can fix something.
right? And so it's just
Right.
kind of like, whether it's my dog Apollo or that photo, those are the things that give me the opportunity to really get in and figure out what the issue is. And it's kind of like, I
Right.
wish I could carry that photo around with me everywhere I go. But
Yeah.
I always try to do that, especially if somebody meets me and I do have that unapproachable resting face on.
Right.
It's like, okay, like you're experiencing me and you're starting to apply stereotypes to how you interact with me.
Right.
What can I do to help diffuse and reroute this experience for the both of us?
Right.
And,
Right.
I grew up in the rural South. I grew up in Elysian Fields, Texas. Shout out to Elysian Fields.
Right.
Shout out to the village. But it was very white, Black,
Hmm.
and nothing in the middle. So
Right.
when I moved to a place like Seattle, I expected, okay, maybe there would be some people who, have racist ideology.
Sure. Yeah.
But I was caught off guard when I moved here, and it wasn't just white people. Like, I was like,
Isn't that weird?
I was like, hold on,
What's going on?
like we should be like this. Like,
Right.
like, so yeah, it was just kind of like, that was a cultural shift and learning experience. And then just trying to figure out, how do I navigate, because um, when I came, I had a draw. I had more of a southern draw, and I miss it.
Uh-huh.
I miss it.
Uh,
But I had to, go back and just really work on my E's, my R's, and slow
yeah,
down. And just trying
yeah,
to make sure that, whatever I was saying, I'd be understood, because I didn't want something to be a misunderconstruction. Jesus, a misunderstanding.
misconstrued. Right,
Yes.
right,
A misunderstanding just because of a perception that you had
right,
before you even actually
right.
made, like, introduce myself. But I did wonder your perspective on that, being, father of biracial children, and, having to be a father, and show
Right.
up for them in all that they do, sports, pageantry, what have you.
Yeah, I've dealt with I've dealt with race from both sides of the spectrum as a child. I grew up in primarily Caucasian neighborhoods from a small child. My mother moved us from Compton, no, from Linwood, California, where I was born at 2 years old, and she moved us way to the outskirts because she didn't because there was a lot of bad things going on in Linwood and South Central LA. So I grew up that way, and my verbiage, even my verbiage now today, I guess I was way ahead of the trend. Where when I was 13, we immediately moved to Compton, which I never lived in around my people. Never, ever in my whole life had I lived around more than 5 Black people that went to the school. Period. And the next thing you know, I'm reading a book and everybody's laughing and giggling at me.
I'd have been like, what's funny?
And that's what I was like. And the teacher, like, what's going on? He talks so proper. That was my first inkling of, wow, why is it everywhere I go, I have to be so different?
Yeah.
Right? I was different there. Now I'm supposed to be at home with my people, and I'm different here too. I'm not accepted here. Right? And then we moved a little bit out of the outskirts into Long Beach and Long Beach area, which is still at the border of Compton, and it was more diverse, and I was more accepted within a more diverse community. These days, for African Americans, for Black people as ourselves, to speak clearly, growing up is the norm.
Right.
When I was a child, it was not the norm. So I was looked at. So I always say that I'm a trendsetter.
Somebody's got to do it.
Somebody got it. Somebody got to do it. So yeah, it's interesting how my daughter, and really going back to that, my daughter growing up and getting older has embraced her African American side, right? Not shunning the Caucasian side, of course, but embrace that when people see you, they see you as, right? When people see you, Shayla, they see you as. And when they ask you what you are, if they're confused, they won't be surprised, right? Right. And for her, the minute she really started embracing it and carrying herself as a strong Black woman, she just flourished in internally in herself, and that's why she wants to be a DNP, doctor's nurse practitioner, in order to help and serve those underserved African American women in the African American community, because it's lesser than I think she feels African American women are lesser valued in healthcare and things like that because they typically don't have someone like them to care for them, right?
That's a huge conversation in the medical field. I know that's ongoing, about the care. I mean, I personally have always, since I was little, been told, when you go to the hospital, you need to be paying attention to everything because they don't listen to us. And
Right.
it's just kind of interesting, just kind of all the different perspectives that you get. But I feel that regionally, culturally, whatever you do, like you can throw a stone and hit a black woman who was given the same speech. Um,
Right.
Similar to, how a lot of African American and black families have to have the speech with their kids very young on about how to interact with the police and things like
Right.
that. It's kind of like I I remember my mom pulling me aside very young and having that conversation with me about how to interact with authority if ever,
Uh-huh.
I come in contact with somebody who's
Sure.
questioning my presence. I
Sure.
remember that, I remember
Yeah.
having a conversation, and in the wake of, what's been happening in the world for these past several
Yeah.
years at the forefront,
Right.
because being African American, I know these are things that have always happened. Um, I just think about the strength of a parent having to have that conversation with their child and
Yeah.
like explaining to them that there's a difference between how you're treated and how they're treated, and it's not propaganda, it's the
No,
truth.
it's
um,
factual.
so I really take care in making sure that parents know when I see them that I just love how they've raised their daughters. So I definitely always make a note to like tell you and to tell Sheila how
Um,
amazing Shayla
Thank
is.
you so
Um,
much.
I haven't had the pleasure of interacting much with your other children, but I'm sure they're amazing as well. But she's just a reflection of the effort that you both have taken as her
Thank
parents
you.
to ensure that she fully understands the whole of who she is. And I think that
Yeah.
shows, in her pursuing her education, her
Yeah.
her work, and her philanthropy through pageantry. So
Yeah.
I kudos, great
Yeah.
job.
Thank you. I think that it's really important, as a black male growing up, and learning how to be an adult from a woman who didn't, learning how to be a man from a woman who didn't, who told me flat out, I don't know how to teach you how to be a man, son. Right? I can't
Right.
teach you that. Uh, I think it's important that we raise our boys, to be strong, educated, sensible people, and our daughters to be number one, to want a man but not need a man.
Period.
That's
Or,
that's number one. I You have them because you want them, not because you need them.
mhm.
And number two, to be educated and self-sufficient, right? And be able to make your own decision in life and with minimal mistakes. And I think we teach all of our children that, but at the same time, um, really pouring into our young black women the value of who they are and the path that that people like you are creating for them, and for the future of the girls that will follow them to be role models and leaders, and us males already have a leg up, so to speak, from in society. Not in my mind, because I'll listen to a woman in a minute and learn a lot. Right? That's why I'm the pageant dad, because I understand women, because I listened from a woman. I was trained by a woman, right? I was trained by a woman to listen and feel, not to be hardened. And so I love empowering and training young ladies and seeing young women like yourself and young women like Shayla flourish and accomplish great things. It's such an honor to speak to you about it today.
And that's what this whole platform I'm creating and pageantry as a whole is all about. So I definitely appreciate your time and sharing just a sliver of your
Thank
story
you.
with me, because I know you have so much more to tell. But do tell the folks where they can find you, where they can connect with you, where they can continue
Absolutely.
to watch your story unfold.
Absolutely. I do have an Instagram page. It's at the Pageant Dad on Instagram. Easy to find me. It's the guy with the smile. And then I have another page, Believe Pageant Consulting, where I have a consulting group for coaching for through pageantry, and we have 4 different coaches: Coach Leah, Amani, multiple USA title holder teen, and Miss, and of course my daughter Shayla, who's competing for Miss Oregon here pretty soon, and she was multiple title holder herself. And I also, of course, as you can see in the background, have a photography page at Believe Pageant Consulting US, and you can communicate with me at any time. We also have a couple of websites. They're easy: believepageantconsulting.net and believephotography.org. And thank you so much, Amber, for speaking with me today and hanging out. I love hanging out with you.
Oh yeah, we can kick it. We can kick it. We always have a good time. And you guys, that's me over his shoulder. If you didn't know, that's me.
That is her. Yes, it is over there. I got to get the hand right. Yeah, that is her. Yes, it is. Oh my goodness, what a coincidence.
Yeah, but awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. I am going to.
That's an amazing photo too. You all like.
That's one of my favorite ones. I'm like, hey, and I'm rocking my green nails.
Yes, the green nails.
That works. Awesome. Well, everyone follow Chris. This has been such an insightful interview. I hope you all enjoy it, and I will see you next time on the BGE Cloud. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much, Amber.